look at the phone.
All right, everybody. I'm here today to give you some information on air traffic control. I think there's a lot of misconceptions on what an air traffic controller actually does. If you're like my father-in-law, you think it's a guy standing on the tarmac with a couple of flags telling somebody where to park. But actually, air traffic controllers use systems to control aircraft. Their primary function is to separate and sequence the flow of air traffic internationally, within their airspace. I'm here today to talk about that. Air traffic control is a service provided by ground-based controllers who direct aircraft on the ground and through controlled airspace, and can provide advisory services to aircraft in non-controlled airspace. The primary purpose of ATC worldwide is to prevent collisions, organize, and expedite the flow of air traffic. There's a lot of sky out there, a lot of planes taking off at one time. Air traffic controllers use these systems on the ground to keep pilots safe. Pilots are equipped on their aircraft with collision avoidance systems. These systems, they somewhat assist an air traffic controller, only in the sense that an aircraft can sense the other aircraft around. They can tell what altitude they're at, and they'll basically give the pilot a alert that there's an aircraft within the vicinity of them. That is the only point really that would be considered like an emergency situation to the pilot. If an air traffic controller tried to sequence or separate that aircraft closer to that one, and that's about the only time that a pilot can take over and avoid what the controller is telling him at that time, only to ensure the safe operation of the aircraft. Pilots do have that final authority for the safe operation of their aircraft and may only deviate in the event of that emergency situation. A couple of different routes to become an air traffic controller is to go to a CTI school. It's similar to a Northwest, but its basic function is to teach kids right out of high school. They're wanting to be certified in air traffic control without having to go through the military or be considered as a walk-on with the FAA. Another way is to go through the military. It doesn't really matter what branch you go to. The Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, they all have air traffic control. They all do different services. The other way is the walk-on with the FAA, which is not a sure thing. They get a post that they can apply to for the FAA about every 6 months to 2 years sometimes. The different types of ATC, pretty much everybody's pretty familiar with a tower. The people that do know anything about air traffic control, that is about the only thing that I think most people reference to air traffic control is the tall tower on the airport. But actually that's a very small function as far as air traffic control goes. Their primary method of controlling is within the immediate airport environment by visually observing the airport from a tall windowed tower. The tower consists of three control positions rather: flight data, ground control, local control. The flight data is more so an assist for the ground controller and local controller. They're the only two that actually control any movement. The flight data would, issue clearance requests to the, they would issue clearance when pilots request for that clearance. They would give it to, they don't actually issue it, they give it to the local controller or the ground controller. They're just the final say as far as how that goes. Ground controller, he controls the movement on the ramps, the taxiways, not just aircraft, but people. The maintenance crews, they all have to be in constant contact with the ground controller to be on any part of the actual tarmac or within the taxiways. The ground controller also, tells the aircraft how to get to their parking pad or how to get to where they're going to offload their passengers in a safe way. The local controller actually controls all the aircraft within that usually center of the airport out to 25 nautical miles or so. As far as he can see, 25 nautical miles is too far. It's actually about 5 nautical miles. And they sequence all the aircraft down to the runway. They clear them to take off, they clear them to land, they tell them which taxiways to get off. They actually separate and sequence the aircraft inside their traffic pattern. And in the event that somebody wasn't actually given clearance to cross a runway from like a taxiway, a guy walking across the runway for whatever reason, the local controller would be, he would tell an aircraft to make a go around. So air traffic controllers, they actually have a lot of rules, regulations, and things that they need to go by as far as to keep those aircraft and pilot and people safe. Thank you.
Ladies, that's fine.
I didn't even get like